Hey there, welcome back. Today we're doing something a little different. This is a Note Lab episode where we go beyond the usual deep dive and really dissect a specific idea. Get ready to explore the ups and downs of life, both at work and personally, through the lens of Spencer Johnson's Peaks and Valleys.
This book is fascinating because it doesn't just talk about good times and bad times happening to you. It dives into how you feel and respond to them, and that's where the real magic lies.
It's like having a roadmap for your emotional journey, right? So we start with this young man living unhappily in the valley, even though things used to be pretty comfortable there. Doesn't that seem kind of counterintuitive?
Absolutely, and that's the point Johnson cleverly makes right from the start. Our external circumstances aren't the only factor influencing our happiness. It's our internal state that really drives our contentment, or in this case, the lack of it.
He decides to climb a nearby peak, hoping to find a better way of life. But as you can imagine, the journey isn't easy. He faces a ton of obstacles, fears, and doubts along the way. It's a real uphill battle.
And that's where the beauty of the analogy lies. It reflects our personal growth journeys, which are rarely a walk in the park. We're often met with internal resistance, but the story emphasizes that the effort is worth it. Just like for the young man, the higher we climb, the better we feel, both mentally and emotionally.
He finally reaches the peak at nightfall, unfortunately missing the sunset. It bummed him out, feeling like it reflected his whole life always just missing out on the good stuff. Have you ever felt that way?
I think we all have at some point.
Yeah.
That's when he encounters the old man at the peak who points out the stunning starry sky. The beauty was there all along, but the young man was so focused on what he'd missed that he overlooked it entirely.
Talk about a powerful perspective shift. I can already see how this idea applies to so many areas of life. But before we go any further, I'm curious, what makes this old man someone worth listening to?
The story reveals that he's been down in the valleys many times himself. He's experienced hardship and struggle, which makes his wisdom all the more valuable because it comes from a place of lived experience.
Okay, that makes sense. So this old man introduces the concept of peaks and valleys, but it's not just about external events, is it?
It's much deeper than that. He emphasizes that peaks and valleys are also our internal responses to those events. And this is a huge takeaway. For anyone, you can actually feel good about yourself even when things around you are tough.
Hold on, isn't that just toxic positivity?
That's a great question and a common misconception. It's not about denying negative emotions or slapping on a fake smile. It's about recognizing that your self-worth is independent of your circumstances. You have the power to find opportunity and control even within challenges.
Okay, now that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So how do these peaks and valleys actually work? Is it just random ups and downs?
Here's where things get really interesting. The old man explains that peaks and valleys are interconnected. The mistakes we make during good times can actually create future bad times. And wise actions during those tough times can pave the way for future successes.
I'm starting to see how this Note Lab episode is really going to help dissect this. So we're not just passive passengers on this roller coaster of life. We're actually shaping our own peaks and valleys.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that our choices and actions have a ripple effect even if the consequences aren't immediately apparent. It's like planting seeds. What we sow today will determine what we harvest tomorrow.
Okay, that analogy really clicks for me.
Yeah.
So let's say you're stuck in a valley. How do you actually turn it into a peak?
The old man outlines two powerful approaches. You can either change the situation itself if you have the power to do so, or you can change how you feel about the situation. If you can't directly alter what's happening externally, you can master your internal response to it.
But how do you avoid simply putting on a happy face while things are falling apart? Isn't that just repression?
It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about reframing the situation and finding the opportunity within the challenge. For example, losing your job could lead you to discover a career path that truly aligns with your passions and purpose. What might seem like a setback could actually be a blessing in disguise.
I can definitely see that. I've heard stories of people who got laid off and ended up finding work they love that they never would have considered otherwise.
Those stories highlight the power of perspective. Choosing to see the potential for growth even in difficult situations can open up new doors and possibilities.
So what happens to the young man next? Does he just stay on that peak and live happily ever after?
If only it were that simple. He actually finds himself unprepared to stay on the peak for long. He didn't bring warm clothes, which symbolizes not being equipped to handle good times wisely.
You know, I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into. We work so hard to achieve a goal, but we don't always think about what it takes to sustain that success. It's like reaching the summit of a mountain without any supplies. You're not prepared to stay there long.
That's a fantastic point. Success isn't a destination, it's an ongoing process. It requires constant learning, adaptation, and a willingness to embrace the inevitable challenges that come with it.
So he heads back down to the valley.
He does, and initially he's eager to apply what he's learned. He even helps his company navigate a crisis by finding the good hidden within the bad situation.
But I bet that newfound wisdom doesn't last forever, does it?
Unfortunately not. His initial enthusiasm fades and he slips back into old patterns. He gets caught up in his success at work, becomes arrogant, and ends up alienating his colleagues and friends.
Ouch. It sounds like he forgot the lessons at the peak pretty quickly.
He did. In an attempt to escape the discomfort of the valley, he ends up on what the book calls the plateau. It's this in-between zone, either high nor low, a kind of emotional limbo.
I think we've all been on that plateau at some point. That place where you're not necessarily unhappy, but you're not truly thriving either. It's like coasting on autopilot.
It's that going through the motions feeling. But the question the book poses is that plateau a form of self-care and rejuvenation, or is it actually preventing you from reaching your full potential?
I think that's a question we'll all have to reflect on personally.
Yeah.
So what does the young man do? Does he just stay stuck on the plateau indefinitely?
He eventually realizes that something's off. He's not experiencing the clarity and fulfillment he felt on the peak. He decides to make the climb again, hoping to gain more insight from the old man.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. What does the old man reveal this time?
Welcome back to our Note Lab episode on peaks and valleys. When we left off, the young man was heading back to the peak, seeking the old man's wisdom once again. He's confused, right? The peaks and valleys approach helped him at first, but then it felt like it stopped working.
And he's realizing that the plateau wasn't the solution either. It was just a temporary escape from facing the valley. So what happens when he gets back to the peak? Does he get the answers he's looking for?
He does, and this time the old man uses a really clever analogy, the heartbeat. He sketches out a heartbeat with its peaks and valleys and points out that it's a healthy rhythm, essential for life itself.
That's such a powerful visual. Our hearts literally need those ups and downs to function properly.
Exactly, and the same principle applies to our emotional lives. The old man emphasizes that plateaus can be healthy too, but only if they're times of genuine rest and reflection, not simply avoidance of challenges or difficult emotions.
So it's not about trying to eliminate valleys from our lives altogether, but learning to navigate them in a healthier way.
That's the key takeaway here, and this is where things get really profound. The old man tells the young man, "You are not your peaks or valleys. You are separate from them."
I love that. It's about recognizing that our emotional states are temporary and don't define who we are at our core.
It's about creating some healthy distance between your identity and those fleeting emotional experiences. That separation allows you to achieve a sense of balance, to ride the waves of life's ups and downs without getting swept away by them.
So the young man was making the mistake of equating those temporary states with his permanent identity.
Exactly. He was attaching too much significance to those passing emotions. The old man reminds him that living the peaks and valleys approach is about engaging your heart, not just your head. It's not just intellectual understanding, it's about truly embodying these insights and letting them guide your actions.
It's got to be more than just a theory. It has to become a lived experience. So what happens next? Does the young man finally get it this time?
Well, he definitely gains some important new pieces of the puzzle. The old man reveals that one of the main reasons people leave a peak too quickly is arrogance. It masquerades as confidence, but it leads to complacency and a failure to appreciate what you have.
That's such a common trap, isn't it? When things are going well, it's easy to become overconfident and stop doing the things that got you there in the first place.
It's like thinking you've reached the finish line when life is really a marathon. And on the flip side, one of the most common reasons people stay stuck in a valley for too long is fear, which often disguises itself as comfort or familiarity.
It's like that saying, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Fear can keep us locked in familiar patterns, even if they're not serving us anymore.
That's exactly it. The young man is starting to grasp the importance of self-awareness, of recognizing those underlying emotions that are driving his behaviors. But there's still more for him to learn.
Okay, so he's on the peak. He's got these new insights. What does he do next? Does he head back down to his valley to try again?
This time, something different happens. He spots an even higher peak in the distance, and he's drawn to its potential. But there's a deep, daunting valley separating him from it. He's determined to cross that valley, but this time he wants to do it differently.
I bet that valley is filled with fear.
You're absolutely right. The journey is brutal. He gets lost, injured, and completely soaked to the bone. But then he reaches the lowest point of that valley, and that's when things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens at the bottom of the valley?
He encounters a raging river representing a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. He feels utterly defeated, ready to give up. But then he remembers the old man's words. The pain in a valley can wake you up to a truth you have been ignoring.
It's like the valley itself is forcing him to confront something he's been avoiding.
Exactly. And in that moment of intense struggle, he has a breakthrough. He cries out, "My valley I sphere."
Wow. He's realizing that his fear is actually creating the valley he's experiencing. That's a powerful insight.
It's a game changer. It's not just that he's afraid of what's in the valley. His fear itself has become the very substance of the valley.
That's mind-blowing. But just recognizing that, is that enough to overcome it?
It's a crucial first step because now he can start to address the fear directly. He remembers the old man's advice about creating a sensible vision, and that becomes his lifeline.
What exactly is a sensible vision?
It's not just wishful thinking. It's about envisioning your desired future peak in such vivid detail that it pulls you forward. The young man imagines the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and feelings of being on that peak. The image becomes so real that it starts to dissolve his fear.
It's like he's using the power of his imagination to break free from his limitations.
Precisely. And here's the crucial part. It's not just about passively wishing for things to be different. It's about taking action inspired by that vision. He devises a plan to cross the river, and even though it's terrifying and challenging, he keeps going. He's fueled by that vision of reaching the other side.
The sensible vision becomes the driving force behind his actions. It gives him both the motivation and direction he needs to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And guess what? He actually makes it across the river.
He conquers his fear and reaches the other side. But does he make it to that higher peak?
He does. And as he stands there taking in the incredible view, he has another profound realization. A personal peak is a triumph over fear.
That's so powerful. It's not just about achieving some external goal. It's about overcoming those internal obstacles that hold us back.
He also finally understands the difference between wishing and envisioning. Wishing leads to inaction, but following a sensible vision compels you to take the steps necessary to make it a reality.
So the sensible vision sets off a chain reaction of positive action. It all starts with that clear, compelling image of what you want to achieve.
That's a great way to put it. And as he continues his journey, he begins to see the valley differently. He realizes that the pain he experienced actually woke him up to truths he had been ignoring.
The valley, with all its challenges, actually became a source of growth and wisdom for him.
Yes, it did. And he comes to understand that the old man's frequent use of the word truly is about aligning with truth, truly appreciating good times, truly learning from bad times, and truly seeing reality clearly without the distortion of fear or wishful thinking.
So it's about stripping away those layers of delusion and seeing things as they truly are. So what happens when he finally reaches that higher peak? Does he get to share his discoveries with the old man?
He does. And the old man is thrilled with his progress. The young man shares his insights about the importance of truly living the peaks and valleys philosophy, seeing both good and bad times as valuable gifts. And the old man notices something else about him.
What's that?
He's developed a sense of humility. He's no longer boastful or arrogant, and that makes him more likely to appreciate and savor his peaks. He's learned that true success isn't about fleeting achievements. It's about continuous growth and self-awareness.
It seems like he's finally integrating those lessons into his very being.
Exactly. But his journey isn't over yet. He still has more to learn.
I'm hooked. What happens next? Join us for part 3 of this Note Lab episode as we continue exploring peaks and valleys. Welcome back to Note Lab. We're wrapping up our deep dive into peaks and valleys and unpacking some serious wisdom along the way. When we left off, our young man had reached a new peak, overflowing with hard-won insights. But something tells me the learning isn't over yet, is it?
You're right. There's one more crucial layer to uncover. The young man, eager to keep growing, asks the old man about his experience at the bottom of that valley, the one with the raging river. He wants to know how to face those truly difficult times when fear threatens to overwhelm you.
It sounds like he's ready to go deeper, to really master the art of transforming valleys into peaks.
And the old man encourages him to do just that. Instead of just relying on the wisdom of others, he suggests focusing on discovering his own deeper truths. He tells him, what you discover will become your own wisdom, not mine or anyone else's.
I love that. It's not about blindly following someone else's path. It's about blazing your own trail based on your unique experiences and insights.
Exactly. It's about cultivating self-reliance and trusting your inner compass. So the young man embarks on a new journey this time with a mission to uncover his own personal truths and apply them to his life. As he descends from the peak, he notices a shortcut he hadn't seen before.
That's interesting. It's as if Gaining a new perspective literally opened up a new path for him.
That's a great observation. It highlights the importance of shifting your viewpoint. When you're stuck in a valley, try to imagine what you would see if you were standing on a peak. It can help you discover new possibilities and solutions you might have overlooked.
So what happens when he gets back to his valley? Does he manage to apply these deeper lessons to his everyday life?
He does, and he faces an immediate test. He returns to his job and finds his company in deep trouble. They're losing money. Morale is at an all-time low, and a huge competitor is threatening to put them out of business.
It's like all the fear he faced in that valley is now manifesting in his work life.
It's a powerful parallel. But this time he's equipped to navigate the storm. He remembers the old man's advice about finding the good hidden within every bad time, and he rallies his team to do the same.
Instead of panicking, they're looking for the opportunity within the crisis.
Exactly. They ask themselves two crucial questions. What is the truth in this situation? And how can we use the good that's hidden in this bad time?
Those are such powerful questions. They cut through the noise and help you focus on what truly matters.
They do. And through this process of seeking truth and opportunity, the team realizes that their competitor's marketing campaign, while promoting a lower quality product, will actually raise awareness of their type of product in general. They discover the hidden good. They can leverage this increased awareness to their advantage by developing an even better product.
It's like turning their competitor's strength into their own secret weapon.
That's a great way to put it. They use the power of collective visioning. They imagine a brighter future for their company and then take concrete steps to make it happen. They listen to their customers, improve their product, and ultimately turn their fortunes around.
It's a perfect example of how the peaks and valleys approach can work on a team level, not just for individuals.
Absolutely. Now remember how the young man had struggled with arrogance in the past? Well, he gets promoted, which brings up a new challenge, his history of relationship difficulties. He's afraid of repeating those mistakes, even though he's gained so much wisdom.
It makes sense that he'd be worried about falling back into old patterns, especially in such a familiar area.
He is. But this time he chooses to say less and do more, embodying the philosophy in his actions rather than just talking about it.
He's leading by example, allowing his actions to speak louder than words.
Exactly. He creates a new vision for himself, a vision of becoming a more loving and attractive person. He focuses on being the kind of partner he wants to be, someone who is humble, caring, and committed to personal growth.
So he's not just trying to get the girl, he's genuinely striving to become the best version of himself.
Precisely. And this leads to one of the most powerful takeaways from the book. You get out of a valley sooner when you manage to get outside yourself. At work, by being of greater service, and in life, by being more loving.
What a beautiful sentiment. It's about shifting your focus from self-preservation to contribution and connection.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from serving something larger than yourself. Years pass, and the young man becomes an old man himself, reflecting on the profound impact the peaks and valleys approach has had on his life. He's achieved professional success, personal fulfillment, and he's learned to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with grace and wisdom.
It sounds like he's reached a place of genuine peace and contentment, knowing that the cycle of peaks and valleys will continue, but he's equipped to handle whatever comes his way.
He has. And in a beautiful full-circle moment, the story ends with him encountering a young woman struggling in her own valley. He shares the wisdom he's gained, passing the torch to the next generation.
It's a reminder that the journey of learning and growth never really ends, and we have a responsibility to share what we've learned with others.
That's the essence of mentorship and paying it forward. So as we wrap up this Note Lab episode, what does this all mean for you, our listener? The Peaks and Valleys approach offers a profound way to make both the good times and the bad times work for you, not against you.
It's about embracing a perspective of growth, taking inspired action, and recognizing that you have more power over your emotional landscape than you might realize. So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what truth is hidden in your current situation, and what sensible vision will pull you forward?
Those are fantastic questions to ponder. And perhaps this deep dive into peaks and valleys will inspire you to embark on your own journey of self-discovery and peak seeking. Thanks for joining us on No Lab.